So in this, we will start with economies of scope. Economies of scope shows combined production of all the units. So for example, if a firm produces tractors and cars, then separately their cost function would look like C1x1 plus C2x2. But if both these products are produced in the same plant, then cost function would look something like this. C x1 and x2. Now we know Cx1, x2 will be smaller than C1, x1 plus C2, x2 due to economies of scope. Economies of scope can also lead to brand dilution. Firm, which means firm is not associated with one particular commodity and creates confusion, leading to consumers going away. Now we do economies of scope in agriculture. So in agriculture, we have integrated farming, like in agriculture, poultry, fishing, contributing each other by using each other's residue and production helping in the productivity to grow. So, for example, in agriculture, fishing, poultry, they use residue of each other and production helping the productivity to grow. Economies of scope was developed as a concept by Melloshell, Winston, and Green in the study of automobile sector after World War II. A firm can have a choice to produce two related commodities in the same plant, incurring a cost C x1 and x2, while there can be another choice of producing the two commodities in separate plants, incurring cost C x1, C1 x1 plus C2 x2. If the firm has economies of scope, then Cx1 x2 will be lesser than C1 x1 plus C2 x2. This is because the commodities will be close enough that their managerial cost. So since these bots are related to each other, economies of scope reduces managerial cost, marketing cost, administrative cost, and this can be combined to reduce overall cost burden for a combined plant. Compared to cost burden of segregated plants if the commodities are not closely related or if it heads to brand dilution, then C1x1 plus C2x2 is lesser. So if this scenario plays out, then C1x1 plus C2x2 is smaller than C1x1 x2 combined. So in case there is brand dilution happening, then this could occur, which shows there is no economies of scope. If the firm experiences economies of scope, then its average cost of production will fall and the average cost curve will shift downwards. The Meloshil, Winston, and Green found strong presence of economies of scope in automobile sector, electrical appliances, consumer durables, etc., but they did not find it in minerals, small consumer goods, etc. However, integrated farming is an example of economies of scope in agriculture. So, So now we move to macroeconomics. This was all about economies of scope. We move to national income. We'll start from basics and we'll move further to advanced very quick. So in macroeconomics, macro means aggregate economy as a whole. Macroeconomics divide entire economy into four sectors: households, which are individual and people. So four sectors: households, individuals, people. They do final consumption activities. Then we have consumer goods and capital goods. So consumer goods are basically all those goods which are used for ultimate satisfaction of the individual and household, and capital goods. So ultimate satisfaction and capital goods are all those goods which are used for further production of goods and services. Over a long period of time. Households invest in capital goods only through buying a home. So, this is something to note. Buying a house, which is residential construction investment. Households are owner of primary factors of production, which are land, labor, capital, entrepreneur. Labor can be both skilled and unskilled. Capital as funds which can be used to purchase capital goods, and entrepreneur will obviously get the profits, arranging all factors of production to create a business activity and then developing the business. Electricity in a firm is an intermediate service. This is worth remembering. Resources are need to govern, due to which government also do consumption and investment. So let's move to firms. All production enterprises, the firm uses primary inputs supplied by households and secondary inputs like raw materials to produce goods and services. Firms are the most determinant dominant sector doing investment in an economy. Investment is net addition to capital goods or any new purchase of capital goods in investments. Savings are financial investments. So these includes buying a share, FD, bond, debenture, etc. Households are majorly responsible for savings. Real investment is addition to stock of capital goods. So this is investment, and then there is real investment, which means addition to stock of capital goods. In real investment, firms are major contributors, and in savings, households are major contributors. Government activities related to governance, government taxes people and provides subsidies, along with making expenditures on both consumer and capital goods. Then fourth part is third is government, fourth is external sector. Mind you, these four things are the subparts in which macroeconomics divide the whole economy. The first one was households, then firms. So households, firms, government, and external sector. So external sectors include every institution outside domestic territory of economy. It consists of every institution outside the domestic territory. Now let's talk about domestic territory. So domestic territory or economic territory includes first is political boundary, which includes all land and sea boundaries. Then we have aeroplanes and ships operated by residents of the country. And this also includes companies headquarters in the country. Then third, we have oil platforms and natural gas rigs operated by residents of the country. Platform does not consist of marketing and services. Example, outlets will not be considered domestic territory of foreign brand. And fourth, we have embassies and consulates operated by a country. So these are the part of domestic or economic territory. At present, all the national income calculations are done under rules of SNA 2008. Then we have circular flow of income, which is very easy and very important to know. So the two things which are flowing are factor income and transfer income. Factor incomes are income earned by primary factors of production in the form of rent, wage, interest, and profit. Transfer incomes are receipts which are unilateral, no quid pro quo. Example, donation, charity, scholarships, tax subsidy, etc. So in a two-sector circular flow, it is quite simple and we can always see it in the textbooks. So there is a flow. So first, households would supply their land, labor, capital plus entrepreneur to firms. Firms would then produce goods which will be purchased by households, and for that, households will do final consumption expenditure, and for the factors of production, the households will get rent plus wage plus interest plus profit. So this happens in a two-sector model. If household saves, they will do it through bank. This will be lent to firms, leading to investment by the firms. Savings are withdrawal or leakage. Investments are called injections. So savings are withdrawal, leakage, and investments are injections. So in a three-sector model, now we move into three-sector circular flow. This is quite complex and I don't want to go into it because it is way too complicated. But in this, we also have households, firms, and we have then external sector. So then there would be imports, inflows, exporting, investments, all these things also come into play. And then there will be taxes and subsidy also coming into it. Also, we will have a government sector as well. So government will tax them, give them subsidies and all this. So that will also happen. And then households will give taxes, fees, and fines. Government will give them subsidies. There is a bank in between them, between households and firms. So that will also operate. So households will give their savings to bank, and bank will uh, just use it to as an investment in firms. So this will be whole complicated. Also, since there is external sector, there will be remittances, there would be final consumption expenditure, the rent, wages, interest, and profit also with the external sector. So this becomes quite complicated. So I'm not going much deep into it, though I have everything in my notes regarding it, but it's just making it more and more complicated. So now we move on to income is equals to expenditure on goods and services produced in domestic territory. So income includes C plus S plus T, and expenditure is C plus I plus G plus NX. Leakage from circular flows are S plus T plus M, which are savings plus taxes, savings plus transfers plus imports, which are equal to investments plus government expenditure plus exports. These are injections and these are leakages. So then we move on to calculation of GDP. Okay. We all know there are three ways to calculate: national income and GDP. So the first is, let's talk about domestic product. Domestic product is total value of final goods and services produced in domestic territory of an economy in a given financial year. Final goods and services consist of consumer goods and services, capital goods. They do not include intermediate goods and services to avoid the problem of double counting. Now, the first way is value addition method, which simply means value of output minus value of intermediate goods and services. Intermediate goods are all those goods and services which are used for further production of goods and services for sale in the market. If a firm do not use intermediate good for more than a year, then it will be calculated as inventory investment. Intermediate goods get exhausted in 1 year and are completely used and can't be retrieved. This is contrary to capital goods, which can be used for a lot more years. So first is we can do summation of value added by all enterprises in an economy, which will be equal to domestic product. Value of output minus intermediate goods is value added. Third is gross value minus depreciation, which would be equal to net value. So depreciation is the value of capital stock which is lost due to normal wear and tear and foreseen obsolescence. So not unforeseen but foreseen obsolescence. Depreciation fund is kept to keep value of capital goods intact. Replacement value of capital or consumption of fixed capital is depreciation. When GDP includes the value of net indirect tax, it is called GDP-MP. If value of Net indirect tax is subtracted from GDP. Then we have GDP at factor cost. So GDP entry minus NIT is GDP at factor cost. Tax is a compulsory payment by government to households and firms. None of them can expect anything in return from government. Indirect tax increases price of goods by getting added to factor cost. So market price minus NIT is factor cost, and we will do production method and expenditure method in the next one.